There was an MS-13 gang member that was caught traveling with the migrant caravan.
The health situation is dire as the migrants continue to overwhelm our southern border.
President Trump will head to Argentina for the annual G20 summit. He's expected to meet with several world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin.
President Trump has answered Robert Mueller's questions, but Democrats say it's still not enough.
Congress is really running out of runway to take off any serious investigation. That takes time.
House Democrats have formally nominated Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker next year.
Are there dissenters? Yes, but I expect to have a powerful vote as we go forward.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. The President and First Lady taking part in the 96th annual National Christmas Tree Lighting.
May this Christmas season bring peace to your hearts, cheer to your spirit, and joy to the world.
Just like fire.
Friends, ho, ho, ho. It's lit the Christmas tree in Rockefeller Center last night, and the White House tree as well.
We have gold trees. We have red trees. We have silver reindeer.
Right. And if you were up late watching the lighting of the Christmas tree, it's now time to wake up and get dressed. Come on, you got a big day.
Come on, get dressed, Brian says.
Wear something warm because it's a little chilly here in New York.
We're zipping a liner.
Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about our Fox News alert. And this is, we've heard that there were criminals involved in coming up through Central America and Mexico in the caravan. And now, according to the Border Patrol, apparently they have caught a member of MS-13. He admitted to the Border Patrol he had joined a caravan to get to the United States. He was in a gang, he admitted. And he also admitted that what he wanted to do was come into the country illegally and then apply for asylum.
Why can't Robert Mueller have people, suspects like that to talk to? He told us everything.
He did indeed.
They interviewed him. They arrested him on Saturday night at 6:09 p.m. They excuse me. They took him to the El Centro station to further investigate him, and they did something called a biometric background check. And records revealed that in 2006 he had to be deported. He was in Las Vegas, and they deported him using an escort flight from Las Vegas back to Honduras. Here we are again arresting him, and he was caught in Calexico, near the port of entry there in Calexico, California.
You know, we heard there were 600 criminals in the midst, and we get some gang members there. Evidently, there's still looked at, we have 3,877 men, 1,100 women, 6,062 total, and more are coming. So I don't know what are they going to be doing in Tijuana. Well, I mean, how are they going to handle it?
Well, apparently in Tijuana, what they're going to do is tomorrow they're going to open another shelter because they are completely maxed out. And there you can see some of the caravans moving through portions of Mexico. Meanwhile, Rodney Scott, who is one of the top Border Patrol agents in that particular region of San Diego, was with us about half an hour ago. And he talked about how they're finding a number of people with questionable past in the caravan. Listen to this.
Getting criminal history on individuals in other countries is quite difficult, and also it's by admission. So we had the MS-13 member. There's another 18th Street gang member, self-professed, claims to have murdered somebody and been in prison before, but tracking down those records is difficult. So we're preparing accordingly. We watched this migrant caravan, which is different than any other just by volume and the propensity for violence. We watched them violently push across 2 international borders and come up through Mexico. So we did significant intel briefings with our personnel and made sure that we were ready.
Yeah, you know, and we have troops, but the troops are in Texas, McAllen, Texas. We know we have San Diego, where the wall, some of it's new, and some of it is basically up to people's chests, so they can scale it on a good day, just on one step. You got 105 migrants who decide to hop on a plane and fly back out of Mexico. 200 migrants filed for voluntary repatriation into Mexico, which has been an offer all along. So they got to be making the decision. My hope is it's going to be a ripple effect. Word's going to get out in Honduras, Ecuador, and Guatemala. Don't come. This is not worth the trip.
Yeah, there was one mom who was in her 40s, and she had 3 kids, and she said, this is just not what it cracked up to be. This has been a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. We're being called names by the residents in these towns that we're traveling through, and she said, we're going home, and she took her kids. Not many people are doing that. There are thousands in these caravans, and only hundreds have decided to call it quits and go back home. But there are some organizations that are helping them do that by putting them on planes, taking them to south of Mexico, and then the southern part of Mexico, and putting them on buses and taking them back to Honduras or El Salvador.
Well, they're finding it's a lot harder to get in the United States now than it was before. What's going to happen? We got Griff Jenkins in the location. In fact, right now he's talking about the health situation is very dire as migrants continue to overwhelm our southern border, heading for Tijuana.
Yeah, officials are now warning of serious health risks. Migrants from the caravan, they're all bringing them, many are bringing them to the U.S. if they get here.
Well, Griff Jenkins is, look at that sign right there. Griff Jenkins is live in Tijuana, Mexico with the latest. Griff, that sign said no spitting. Is that becoming a problem?
Of course it is, guys. It says prohibido escupir, no spitting, because they're coughing rampantly and they're spitting on the ground. Let me just try and give you some perspective. If you look down here, you see this white tent down there? There's one walk-in vehicle that has one bed and one tent. That is Tijuana's health officials, and that is what they're trying to service 6,000 people in this tent city. Let me show you the numbers that Tijuana's health department spokesman gave me yesterday. Of the 2,267 migrants that they have treated here, they know that over 60% have respiratory infections. There have been 3 confirmed cases of tuberculosis. There have been 4 cases of HIV/AIDS, 101 cases of lice, and 4 cases of chickenpox. And they're really worried about hepatitis becoming a very serious problem because you've got 6,000 people packed into a space for 1,000, and you've only got 35 bathrooms. Do the math. That's like 171 people per porta potty. And it's unbelievably unsanitary here in the rain, making things even worse because people are wet and cold. And that is why when you talk to some of these migrants, they say, listen, we did not expect it to be this situation where we couldn't get across, and we feel like the organizers lied to us. And not only that, now we may be reaching a breaking point. Here is Marco Munoz. Listen.
They lied to us from the beginning. So most of these people are disappointed, and getting frustrated at the time. So as you can see, every day that passes, it's more and more people that are coming. So it's going to be a point break where they're just going to say, let's just rush in there,
Finally, one thing to consider, if they do end up moving them from this location, which we have been hearing a lot of reports of, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because it could be a lot of problems, because the migrants here are not entirely trustful of the Mexican officials. They may feel like they're being deported. That, of course, coming on the heels of the fact that everyone in here is already sick and needs any help they can get. By the way, final point, and that is Tijuana is the only health officials here. There is no federal assistance going on right now. So the situation is going to be worse and fluid, guys.
It is dire. All right, Griff, thank you very much. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about the Mueller investigation. Remember when we heard that Mueller wanted to ask the president a bunch of questions? He did via a written questionnaire, and the president responded. And now we're hearing, and presumably these leaks are from the president's team because we haven't really recorded anything from the Mueller team. Apparently, the president, in his written answers, said he didn't know anything about WikiLeaks directly during the campaign, and he didn't know anything about that 2016 Trump Tower meeting either.
With the Russian attorney.
We do know the Washington Post came forward, and they had a story today that shows Roger Stone and the President of the United States seem to have talked a lot late at night, according to Roger Stone. Unknown callers have popped up. He says, I did call a lot to Trump Tower, and since the President doesn't email, I would read to his assistant, who we all know her name, and he said, this is my idea of what you should be doing on the campaign. This is in 2016. But they did exchange a lot of calls, according to Roger Stone and this story. So it come down to 2 themes over the last few days. Jerome Corsi, Roger Stone, and the president. How often did they talk, and what did they know about Julian Assange? At the very least, they're bragging about a relationship they had. Now they basically want to say, don't believe what I wrote.
But talking on the phone is not a crime. If they work together, they're allowed to do that.
I'm not saying it's a crime.
Right.
But I'm just saying Roger Stone was in contact. If they do have, if the Mueller team has who the phone number is, that unknown caller that called Roger Stone, then if it's the president, then they're going to drill down on that, or maybe they have.
I'm sure they've got the metadata. They know exactly who called whom. The question is, were any laws broken? And Jonathan Turley summarized it this way.
This begin to get boiled down to some central questions, and those are true or false. Does Mueller have evidence that the president was involved in these things? When did the Trump officials, if at any time, know about the hacking before it was released? The problem Mueller has is that if the narrative is that some Trump associates wanted the WikiLeaks information, that's not enough. It's not a crime. I mean, Clinton's people went to Russia to find dirt on Trump. That happens in politics.
Political gossip, and that is not why you spend $40 million on a 3-year investigation. This is what Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi do. They write books about it. This is what they think. This is their theories. There is interaction with the president. It doesn't mean they were calling the shots. Dave Bossie, Corey Lewandowski, Kellyanne Conway, Steve Bannon, those are the ones that were calling the shots, not these kids.
Jonathan Turley said he hopes the investigation, you asked him that question, when will this end? And he said it's probably going to end. This is his take. He hopes, or he thinks it will end by the end of the year, because Democrats take over in January. It wouldn't look good if Mueller...
Well, they've talked to the president, and he's the last one you would think that they would talk to, so stay tuned.
Right. You were glad I asked that question.
I loved that question, because I think we all wanted all to be over, right? We want to focus on policy and not investigations.
All right. Jillian joins us right now with some news from the Pentagon.
That's right. Good morning. And we now know the names of the 3 U.S. Special Ops killed on the deadliest day in Afghanistan this year. There you see their faces. Army Captain Andrew Ross, Army Sergeant First Class Eric Amond, and Air Force Staff Sergeant Dylan Elchin died after their vehicle hit a roadside bomb. 3 other American soldiers and a contractor were also hurt in the explosion in Ghazni, a city south of Kabul. 12 American heroes have died in Afghanistan this year. Now to a Fox News alert. The Chinese government is stopping this scientist's work on making genetically edited babies. The country's leaders ordering an investigation, calling the practice illegal and unacceptable. The first gene-edited babies, a pair of twin girls, were born this month. The medical team says there's another baby on the way. Gene editing is banned in the U.S. In a couple hours, President Trump will head to Argentina for the annual G20 summit. He's expected to meet with several world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to the Kremlin, they will discuss anti-terrorism efforts, Syria, and North Korean denuclearization. President Trump will also hold talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping over the trade war. And that is a look at your headlines. I'll send it back to you.
A lot at stake.
Yes.
All right, Jillian.
Thanks,
thank you.
Jillian.
All right, 12 minutes now after the hour. Here's what we have straight ahead. The media has been saying a lot about the caravan. I'll stop now.
Many of them will get asylum, have legitimate asylum claims.
They're more mothers than monsters.
Why did President Trump send troops to the southern border?
Right. But how accurate is that coverage? We're separating fact from fiction because we want to.
Plus, Stormy Daniels, it appears, just turned on her lawyer, Michael Avenatti, why she is calling him out for suing the president.
Huh?
All right, the migrant caravan dominating the news cycle as the crisis at our southern border continues. But how much of the media coverage is accurate? Here to separate fact from fiction, Republican strategist and executive director of Accuracy in Media, Gus Portella, joins us from D.C. Gus, good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, first up, we've got 3 different sound bites we're going to play for you, and then you're going to tell us whether or not they're accurate. The first one is, and we've heard this a number of times, that the caravan is made up of people who want to get asylum and would qualify, with sound bites like this. Listen.
Many of them will get asylum, have legitimate asylum claims.
These people are coming and asking for asylum. Guess what, Ben? It's in our laws that people are allowed to come to our borders and ask for asylum.
Is that accurate?
It isn't. Unfortunately for them, according to DHS, 90% of these caravan members are not eligible for asylum. In fact, less than 10% would be granted asylum by a federal judge. And so those claims are not accurate.
How about the claim that there are no criminals in the caravan? We've heard that in sound bites like this.
This is not a caravan of so-called criminals. We're seeing no evidence that this is overwhelmingly some kind of criminal gang.
Stop saying they're monsters. They're more mothers than monsters.
What do you say about that?
Well, unfortunately for them, that's false. DHS tells us that we have over 600 over 600 current criminals identified in the caravan. That's not counting the already 100 criminals that Mexican officials have detained already, plus the MS-13 gang member that was just recently detained as recently as yesterday.
Right, that's right. And he, as soon as he was apprehended on our southern border, he said, "Yep, I was in MS-13 and I want to apply for asylum after I break into the country illegally," he said, reportedly. The final soundbite is about how troops are not needed at the border. Watch this.
Why did President Trump send troops to the southern border ahead of the election? It was a political stunt. And this is, part and parcel of his strategy to divert, deflect, distract, deny.
Okay, so it's just a stunt.
It isn't, unfortunately. It's not accurate. There are about 5,800 troops on the border, obviously spreading from California to Texas, and potentially more could be added. The Defense Department hasn't told us the need for it, but it's important to reinforce. Their mission is to reinforce border and customs agents who were just recently, as last week, attacked by some of these elements of migrant members who have been causing issues in the borders that they've crossed, even in Mexico, and recently, like I said, our border in San Diego, San Ysidro.
And when you look at the thousands of migrants heading toward the United States, the Border Patrol doesn't have the manpower, so that's why the troops were needed, according to the president. Gus, thank you very much for helping us out today.
Thanks for having me.
That. All right, very good. What do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com, and of course, we are on Facebook as well. Meanwhile, a new controversy surrounding the VA. Veterans reportedly underpaid on their GI Bill benefits. And we've just learned they may not get another dime. Plus, two Christian artists fighting for their faith. Now they may have to go to jail because they will apparently not make artwork for same-sex weddings. Those artists join us live next.
All right, some quick headlines right now, and then over to Ainsley over there. Veterans underpaid on their GI Bill benefits will not be reimbursed. NBC is reporting this morning the VA told congressional staffers that retroactively paying veterans would delay future claims. The VA blames the issue on computer problems. And of the 34,000 applicants for the student loan forgiveness plan, only 26 have been approved. Congress authorized $350 million to speed up the program earlier this year. More than $1.5 trillion in student loans is owed to the federal government. That's working out well. Ainsley?
All right, thank you, Brian. Two Christian artists in Arizona could face jail time if they refuse to make custom artwork for same-sex weddings. The business owners are challenging a local anti-discrimination ordinance that they say goes against their religious values. The Arizona Supreme Court just announced it will hear their case in January. Excuse me. Joining me now are artists and co-owners of Brush and Nib Studio, Joanna Duca and Brianna Koski, along with their lawyer from the Alliance Defending Freedom, Kristen Wagner, who also represented the cake maker lawyer. She was a cake maker lawyer in Colorado. Thank you all for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Joanna and Brianna, I'll start with you guys. You started this company. One does the artwork, one is the calligrapher, and you produce artwork for weddings. And you heard about this law, and this is all preemptive, right? You didn't have someone who is same-sex couple come to you and say, "Will you do this for our wedding?" You just knew that that's a possibility, and you wanted to challenge this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We wanted to create consistently with who we are, and so we decided to bring this case.
Why was that so important to you?
It was important because we have a love and a passion for art and weddings, and there's such a beautiful picture in marriage of Christ and his love for the church. And, we were told growing up that we could live authentically to who we are, and we could be whatever we wanted to be. So that's what we were trying to do, and we brought this case because we believe that artists should be able to be free to create in accordance with their beliefs.
And Ainsley, we got to remember that in terms of pre-enforcement challenges, this has been used in the civil rights era many, many times because Americans shouldn't have to wait to be thrown in jail before they can challenge an unjust law.
So what happened, Kristen? Tell me what happened next. You went to the state court?
We did. We filed in state court challenging Phoenix's ordinance. It actually threatens to put them in jail for 6 months for every day they violate this ordinance. 6 months as well as onerous civil penalties. So they really had no choice but to file this action rather than wait and have to fight it from jail.
Okay, so you lost at the state level, and now it's going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's agreed to hear it in January. What can we expect then?
I'm hoping that we can expect the court to reverse the lower court, because what's at issue here is whether artists and other Americans can be banished from the marketplace just because they disagree with the government's view. And it really transcends the marriage issue. It's any view. Artists cannot be coerced to express messages that violate their core convictions, no matter what side of the debate they're on.
The attorney, Eric Fraser, who is representing Phoenix, he says they want the court system, talking about you guys, they want the court system to give them a blank check to refuse service to any same-sex couple that is requesting custom wedding products. There is no principled way to distinguish between discrimination on the basis on sexual orientation versus discrimination on other bases, such as race or even religion. Do you understand what he is saying? Do you understand the other side?
Well, absolutely, we understand it, and it's just flat wrong. If the free speech guarantees mean anything, they protect the author's pen and the painter's brush. And this old, tired analogy to race is just a bankrupt analogy that the Supreme Court has rejected not once, but twice in the Obergefell same-sex marriage decision, as well as in the Masterpiece Cake Shop decision. All right. They serve everyone. They don't express all messages, and that's critical distinction.
Brianna and Joanna, this is so important to you. You're willing to go to jail for this if you lose?
Well, we're bringing this case so that we don't have to go to jail, because we believe that artists should be free to create without threat of punishment by the government. So we do not want that to happen. That's why we're here.
What if you lose and someone asks you, or you're thrown in jail?
We'll have to discuss that with our attorneys at that time.
But they won't violate their conscience, so they have to shutter their doors, and artists shouldn't have to give up their constitutional rights to make a living.
Many Christians think what you're doing is admirable. I know, or many people of faith would think that. Many people maybe not of faith would. But the other side, you might have some in the faith community that would challenge this and say, Jesus loved everybody. God loved everybody. What's your response to that, to those critics?
We love everyone, and we serve everyone. And we are here just believing strongly and standing up for the rights of artists to be free to create. And we want that for all artists and all people, no matter what they believe, what they think, who they are.
And the point of the case is to let everybody make the decision of what would Jesus do. That's the point of this case. The Constitution gives us that right.
Okay, ladies, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. God bless you all. Thank you. Nancy Pelosi might have won the Democrats' nomination for House Speaker, but the power battle is far from over. Dana Lash is here to react live, coming up next. And one high school football player picks up a huge win before the game even starts. The surprise he never saw coming.
Love to have you in the audience there at the Steakhouse. So show up between 5 a.m. Central Time and 8 o'clock Central Time. You might be on television, and you know who's going to be there? Kid Rock's going to be there.
Nice. You're going to be talking to the people, serving steak and eggs early in the morning.
Absolutely.
My sense, no sleeves on Kid Rock. That's my sense.
Long hair.
No sleeves, long hair.
So far, so
hat.
good.
I
think that's right.
And I bet you he makes something that's in your book, that he's in your book, right?
His mother made a recipe, a chicken pot pie.
Right.
And
This
I
is
think,
Kid Rock.
I think the family will be there as well.
Well,
so
Nashville's fun.
We'd love
You're
to
gonna
see you
love the
tomorrow.
music.
Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Steakhouse tomorrow morning, live from Fox and Friends.
Okay, let's bring in Dana Lash, syndicated radio talk show host and of the Dana Show. Dana, good morning to you.
Good morning to you all. That sounds like a really fun thing tomorrow morning.
I know, right?
Come on over. I think you got to go to Nashville.
We need to take the show on the road.
It's not too far.
All right, let's talk about what's happening
Exactly.
down on the border. We've been talking about these caravans. You have thousands of people that are camped out there trying to get into the United States. And on Saturday night, there was an MS-13 gang member that was arrested. They interviewed him. He was a Honduran citizen. He admitted to being a member of MS-13. There's his picture. And he intended on filing for asylum in the United States. And it turns out he'd already been deported once. What's your reaction to this?
I'm not actually shocked to hear. This is something that DHS warned us about. Secretary Nielsen warned us. They put out a report saying, look, there are about 600 known criminals and gang members that are traveling under the cover of this caravan, and they're exploiting the numbers to use this as a way to gain entry to the United States. And this really underscores the importance of how this has to be a careful process. You can't just let every single person in. You have to be able to vet everyone to make sure that the individuals are who they claim that they are. There have been a number of reports that have been put out by Border Patrol, even just getting into how the family units that previously identified themselves as family units to Border Patrol actually weren't family units, and they were traveling with children that weren't even theirs, and that's very concerning. For those who claim that they care about these individuals, and particularly the children that are traveling with this caravan, although there have been others that have reported that it's predominantly men of a certain age demographic, the good thing to do is to wait and make sure that people are who they say they are, and that criminals aren't exploiting this as a way to get inside the United States. That's common sense, and I really wish that we could hear from Democrat leadership what their solution is to this problem, how they would handle it. The only thing that I've heard, Brian, so far is Elijah Cummings saying, well, I guess we should just let everybody in. I mean, it seems that he was making the argument to not vet anyone.
It's unbelievable. Ben Cardin says the system was working fine until Donald Trump took office. What planet is that guy on? Are you kidding? Everybody agreed that it needed to be fixed, updated. It's how to do it was the debate. Now it's Donald Trump's fault there's turbulence at the border. Unbelievable. I want to bring you over to talk about turbulence. Nancy Pelosi got over 200 votes yesterday in that top secret ballot, 203 to 32. But she does not right now have enough votes to become Speaker again. Why?
I think because people are trying to uphold promises that they made to their voters. You have this battle going on in the Democrat right now, and it's not like, and I can't stand it when I see people compare it to the Tea Party, because the Tea Party was actually protesting against more government. People like Nancy Pelosi are promising more government, and interestingly enough, so are the quote-unquote grassroots resistance members within the Democrat Party. It's just by how much they want to have government. But what's interesting is that these individuals who rode this wave of resistance and anguish and angst, they're trying to take a stand against Nancy Pelosi, but when push comes to shove, on the floor, I think she's going to have the votes. I think that the resistance stops at the door of the chamber. I don't think that it goes beyond that. She's going to assume the gavel.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. But what about when she is Speaker? What about the 32 Democrats who voted against her yesterday? We've had guests on who said they're going to get punished. They're going to wind up with bad assignments and stuff like that, and shunned by Democratic leadership.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why there have been a lot of those Democrats that ended up in this 11th hour coming around to Nancy Pelosi because they realize it's better to be on her good side than not. For as much as I dislike her politics, she is incredibly savvy, although I wish she was savvy in terms of promoting limited government and an agenda of freedom. But that being said, she's very savvy with manipulating members of her own party, and she is known to put people in their place by giving them very bad assignments, if any at all. So we're going to see how that works out. But I think a lot more people are going to come to her side at the end of the day.
Well, she's a prolific fundraiser, and D.C. runs on money. Dana, thank you very much.
Can't argue with money.
And you cannot indeed. All right, thank you very much for joining us live today from Dallas.
Jillian Milley is also pro-money.
Yeah,
right?
Isn't everybody, though? And you can't argue with it because it doesn't talk back. So, you're never going to win that battle. All right, let's get caught up in your headlines right now, starting with this. And Stormy Daniels calling out her attorney, Michael Avenatti. She claims he filed a defamation lawsuit against President Trump without her permission. Daniels also telling the Daily Beast he started a second crowdfunding site for her legal expenses without telling her. Avenatti says he started the new campaign to cover legal fees because most of the money so far has gone to her security. And how about this story? A couple is suing Sandals Resorts for $30 million after they say the private butler assaulted the bride. Ashley Reed telling the New York Post she woke up to the butler touching her inappropriately on the eve of her wedding. The New Jersey couple says Sandals offered to refund them $15,000. They say that's not enough to cover the suffering Reed has endured. A suspect steals a truck with a toddler in the back seat and then abandons it. This is surveillance video showing the suspect ditch the vehicle in a Florida neighborhood. The thief stole the truck while the baby's family was unloading groceries. The toddler's dad chased the vehicle down. The baby was not hurt. And grab the tissues. A deployed soldier surprises his brother as the two are reunited for the first time in years.
Staff Sergeant Robert Vino, older brother of MHS freshman football player Braden Vino.
Oh, the joyful family reunion happening ahead of the younger brother's game in Massachusetts. The soldier spent the last 2 years at Fort Hood in Texas. He stopped home before deploying to Japan. It's great. Those are sweet.
That just gets you.
I know.
Every time.
I wonder how he focused on the game then after that.
No kidding. He was happy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right, it's 40 minutes after the top of the hour, and Janice has a weather report for us. She's outside.
Oh my gosh, look at this amazing crowd.
Wow.
Are you guys excited to be here? Who's from the South? Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And who has birthdays this week? Birthdays. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. Who has birthdays all the time? Okay, that's good. Right over here, too. These are my friends from Milan, Italy, and it's your birthday, sir. How do you say happy birthday?
Compleanno. Buon compleanno.
How do you say it's cold?
In Italia, buon compleanno.
Fa freddo, è cold. Fa freddo.
Very cold.
I don't know what they're saying, but it sounds fantastic. Let's take a look at the maps real quick. It is cold here in New York City, but you know what? The sun is coming out, so it's not too bad. We do have a storm system that's going to visit us this weekend here in New York, so just keep that in mind. We have a storm system moving into the west. For some reason, my maps are not working, but that's okay, because look at the crowd we have here today. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. Did anyone say, oh, look at this. This is Ainsley. When was this? Was this a book signing?
Yes, it was in Nashville 2 years ago.
Oh, very nice. Okay, everybody want to wave to everybody at home and to Steve Ainsley and Brian. You know what? This is my favorite part of the day when I get to see all of you.
We're coming out. We can't wait to see you.
Everybody's bundled up.
I know, it's
I used
cold
to
out
think
there.
Janice liked when she saw us in the morning, but it's not. It turns out we're a distant second.
She
So all those other people.
She likes the folks.
She's a woman of the people.
You're right. All right, I am not a woman of the people. 11 minutes before the top of the hour. No, 18. Google under fire
Not a
yet again.
mathematician either.
The search giant accused of illegally tracking millions of people worldwide. Why, our next guest says Congress needs to act now to protect our privacy. They're coming to Capitol Hill, by the way.
Plus, we said we're coming outside. We're revving things up outside. Some of the hottest motorcycles of the year on Fox Square.
Where's your helmet?
A sneak peek coming up.
Good morning to you. Some quick headlines. Dick's Sporting Goods could remove hunting gear from all of its stores. The chain has taken a hit in recent months following tighter gun sale restrictions. Revenues have dropped 4.5% in the past 3 months. Dick's raised the minimum age to buy a gun to 21 following the Parkland school shooting. And the Trump administration set to officially ban bump stocks on guns. Reports show the administration will require anyone who owns a bump stock to turn it into authorities within 90 days. A formal announcement is expected in the coming days. Brian?
A response to Las Vegas. Google's privacy practices once again under fire. The tech giant now facing worldwide scrutiny over the way it tracks users, sometimes without telling you, after 7 European watchdog agencies filed complaints accusing Google of using deceptive and manipulative techniques against its millions of users. So what does this mean for your privacy? Joining us right now with insight, senior fellow at the Center for Digital Government and a cybersecurity contributor for Hill.com, Morgan Wright. Morgan, this is pretty significant, correct?
Yes.
Why?
It's a $4.4 billion problem for Google because under the new EU regulations called the General Data Protection Regulations, you can be fined up to 4% of your global revenue if you violate the rules of the EU GDPR. And last year, 2017, Google made $110 billion. So this is significant. The other thing, too, Brian, is that at what point does know mean no? At what point, when you turn off tracking and you believe you're not being tracked, do you have an assurance you're not being tracked? Google is also accused of using a lot of deception and manipulation to get people to turn on other things that captures that tracking information. So between the U.S., the U.K., and the EU, there's a lot of legal activity going on that's affecting Google right now.
And keep in mind, I think 9 nations called out Facebook for what they were doing and not doing. So there's a big pushback globally, not just here. By the way, you bring up a point that when you hit pause, you're not supposed to be tracked. They still track you.
Yes.
And Google has a statement in response to that. They say location history is turned off by default, and you can edit, delete, or pause at any time. If you pause it, we may clear that depending on your individual phone and app settings. We might still collect and use location data to improve your Google experience. They're improving for us.
Look, you have to be a computer scientist and a legal scholar to understand everything that goes into operating something as simple as just your phone right here. So we've got to make it simple for people. Look, when you flip a light switch off and the lights go off, the lights are off. It's pretty clear. When you flip it on, it's on. It's got to be that way with your privacy, with your security. And what's happening is this drives revenue, Brian. This is all about Google making money off of targeting you, understanding where you're at, so they can deliver more and more targeted ads. And because you think you're not being tracked, you really are. How many times have people searched for something or been at a restaurant, you go on Facebook and all of a sudden it's like, or Google says, hey, what did you think of this restaurant? You go, I turned off my tracking. How do you know? This just happened yesterday. So I think, what's going to happen is you start off with litigation, with what's going on. Then there's going to be regulation. So you'll see FTC, FCC maybe get involved. But pretty soon, I think what you're going to see is Congress, I think, has had enough of this. They're going to finally take action between Facebook, Twitter, Google, and everything going on. I think you'll see some legislation come up this next year, especially in a Democratic Congress.
Well, famously, the CEO of Google says, yeah, I know you invited me, Congress. I don't think I want to come. Now the CEO will be coming to testify on Capitol Hill. That'll be December 5th, his first public appearance ever before Congress. What question would you have?
I'd want to drill down and I say, okay, I don't think there's one question I could ask. I think there's probably 1,000, but really let's get down to when do we know that we're not being tracked? What do I have to do as a consumer to ensure that you can't track me? And when does no mean no on security and privacy? So I think you got to drill down on that. But as we found out, answers mean, words mean things. Well, it depends. It depends on what the definition of is. I don't want to go through that again. I want clear language from these social media providers, these technology companies, that I absolutely know when I'm being tracked and when I'm not, and I should be able to make a conscious choice. And Google is not giving us that conscious choice. So I'd look at manipulation, deceit, and see what else they're up to.
These companies like Amazon, Google, and Facebook are getting so big, almost bigger than our country. So let's see how they respond, see if there's any humility when they come before Congress. Morgan Wright, thanks so much.
You bet, Brian.
Hey, guess what's coming straight ahead? It's time to get your motor running, so to speak. Some of the hottest motorcycles of the year are on Fox Square. We're revving things up, but first, it is my privilege to ask Sandra Smith what's on her show.
Brian Kilmeade, good morning to you. Good morning to everyone out there. We are awaiting the president. He is set to take off for the G20 summit just a short time from now. We'll see if he stops and talks to reporters, answers any questions on his way out. Obviously, border funding battle, Saudi Arabia, possible meeting with Vladimir Putin. All of those are big issues that could come up. Meanwhile, we'll have live reports from the White House and the border coming up. Senators Barrasso and Thune, Congressman Mike Lee and Anthony Brown, and the stock market on track for its best week since Election Day week 2016. Reagan's former economic advisor, Art Laffer, is here. Join us live in America's Newsroom in about 10 minutes.
All right, get your motor running. The New York International Motorcycle Show kicks off tomorrow. But first, a pit stop here on Fox Square for a sneak peek of bikes. The CEO of Ducati North America, Jason Chinook, is here with the top 2019 models. Good morning to you.
Congratulations.
Good morning.
That's a big position.
It is a big.
Yes, that it is.
And you know what? Back in the day, this guy was a tank pilot, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I actually served in Desert Storm about 20 years ago. So very good.
God bless you. We love you. What I love about this one, it's the most affordable out of all the four that you brought today. Tell us about it.
Actually, this is the Scrambler Cafe Racer, and the Scrambler line is something that's not only affordable but accessible for people wanting to learn how to ride a motorcycle as well. And actually, you can get into this bike for under $99 a month. And it has a little bit of a cafe style or a classic style, but it has all the performance and technology you would expect
What
in
do
a
most
modern
people say
motorcycle.
they love about this one?
It's just the fact that it's got this historic spirit of it.
Okay, and so that's $99 a month. How much is Brian going to have to pay?
I mean, come on, get over here.
Okay,
how much is this going to cost us? This is the Hyper Motard 950 SP, and this is a bike that actually kind of brings out that inner hooligan of you as a motorcycle that a lot of people have buried in deep. Exactly, and this is the one that you get out there, your elbows come out, and you get your teeth, and you have a lot of fun and blast up the canyons if you need to as well. Very fast.
All right, Jason, what is Jillian on?
Hot. The matte black with the red.
Yeah, this is the new Diavel 1260, and this thing is a muscle motorcycle. I mean, this is kind of like the Dodge Charger, if you will, of motorcycles. Yeah, big giant air intakes that helps bring a lot of the air in. It has an incredible sound, and the handling is what you would expect out of a Ducati as well.
All right.
Oh, this is $19,995.
All right.
Just under 20.
Jason, the final one with Janice Dean, the motorcycle machine.
Now, this is the most powerful production motorcycle ever. And this
Really?
is, yes, ever. This is the Panigale V4R. This thing with the race exhaust system delivers 234 horsepower at 369 pounds. And it's basically a bike that's been designed for the track that you can actually ride on the street if you want.
All right. Well, thank you. Janice, just make out a check. It's $40,000. All right.
There you go.
Jason, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Round of applause for the guys from Ducati. We'll be right back.